Today on Rambling About Cars, Honda Civic Type R, Chevrolet Blazer EV, Toyota Crown. What do they have in common? They all recently debuted, and we also need to talk about Hyundai's awesome retro kind of futuristic concepts that recently debuted. And if that's not enough, we have an awesome Lucid Air first drive. You're not going to find this anywhere else. We have a great story to go with it. So without further ado, you know what time it is. It's podcast time. I'm Christopher Smith. And Mr. Chris Bruce, across the way co-host. We're not solo today. We've got a lot to cover. We have some help.
We do. Real quick, Motor One Podcast is a YouTube channel. Rambling About Cars on iTunes and Apple and Google, and all the places where you find audio. Anyway, our guests. We have Clint Simone. I'll go with you first because you're the one I'm looking at first. So
that's nice.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, it's great to be here. I'm the director of video for Motor One and Inside EVs, our two automotive properties. So we drive things with engines. We drive things that are electric. We try to drive all of it. And now I'm here to talk about them.
And we have Seyth Miersma.
Hi. I just wandered in off the street. Nobody really knows why I'm here. It's unclear. This is a podcast about cars, right?
It is. So, usually.
That's something I would expect the editor-in-chief of Motor One to know. But hey,
yes,
just coming in off the street. No, Seth, Clint, I mean, you both have been on the show before. Thank you guys both so much for being here because we have a lot to cover. And the two of you are a big part of that. Where we want to start? We just want to jump right in with Civic Type R, right?
We do. That's where we're starting because now people can see it.
Yeah, we're recording. Technically, it hasn't debuted yet. We're recording on
still
Wednesday.
Under embargo at this moment, but we do have pictures. We have some information. I think we'll be clowning on Honda just a little bit about what information we have.
No, that's not going to happen. Maybe a little bit. But no, we're taking a look at it right now. You want to follow us, Motor One Podcast on YouTube, where you can watch what we're doing. And the Civic Type R has debuted, and if it sounds like we're stalling a little bit for information, it's because I mean, Clint, you let's jump over to you, Clint, because you have some personal experience with the car at this point.
We saw it in the world's hottest studio yesterday. We saw it in an airplane hangar, the same airplane hangar where Elon does all of his presentations.
Okay.
In Hawthorne, by the way. So you just feel the atmosphere. Hotter than heck in there, but we saw a championship white edition of this car. In fact, now that you can see this over on the Motor One YouTube channel, we have a full first look with the Type R, so you can see it in depth, the outside, the inside of the car. A lot of really good performance information too. The cliffhanger, when Honda knows it has a winner on its hand, it will tease information, okay? And this is exactly what they are doing. You do not get to know everything at once. The big cliffhanger is we don't know the power figure. We know that it is the most powerful Type R ever. Civic Type R ever, which means the last generation at 306 horsepower, presumably using the same turbocharged 2-liter engine, the same 6-speed manual with some modifications. I would expect a power figure around 310. The stuff that people want to know beyond that is that we already know that this has the front wheel drive lap record at Suzuka. They're going to put it around the Nürburgring. It is lower, longer, and wider than the previous generation car. To me, the single biggest thing, and I didn't know this until I got there in person yesterday, Civic Type R now comes standard on a Michelin PS4S tire. So they went more aggressive with standard rubber, and it's a wider front section tire. So it's on 265 section tires now. It used to be 245. They also went down to a 19-inch wheel instead of a 20-inch wheel. So they put a lot of time into the front axle, basically to get this grip and be a little bit more engaging than the prior generation.
But to reiterate, and I know the listeners are like, well, how much power does it make? Honda hasn't released power figures yet for the new Type R.
Apparently closer to on sale date later this year that will come into picture. We also don't know the price tag just yet.
We don't know the price yet. We don't know the power yet. We know how it looks, and we know it's lower, longer, wider. It's got fatter tires up front. And I wish I could say a little bit more about it. I'll say this. Looking at the photos, regular listeners know I've been a little critical of the new Civic. I have seen it in person. It does look better in person. I rather like what I'm seeing with the Type R now that it's fully revealed. Not that the camouflage was hiding really that much, anyways. Now that it's fully revealed and you get a sense of its flavor, it feels like a nice kind of mature Type R versus maybe all of the previous generations.
Show that picture of the wing again.
No, I agree with Smith on this. I mean, compared to the last one,
of course it's going to have a little bit bigger of a wing. Everything has a big wing these days, but compared to like the Civic Type R generations that have come before, this feels pretty mature to me.
So the last Civic when it debuted, and the last Type R especially when it debuted, everybody lost their friggin' minds because Honda went completely bananas with the styling, right? They went full on, initial D, anime Type R, whatever. Throw in whatever Japanese like high style animation reference you want. Like they went really crazy with it. They've obviously like turned the dials back from a styling standpoint from the Civic in general. So I get you there, but man, look at this thing. It's nuts. It's still got the triple central exhaust. It's got this crazy wing. I mean, honestly, like that wing is gigantic and it looks like three pieces. It's honestly, I don't know that I've seen anything like it before. Wheels are super aggressive. I'm bullish on this car from a design standpoint, and I love driving the sort of standard Civic. I did not love the design language of the current generation Civic. So maybe I'm an outlier here, but interested to see this.
So what's cool to me,
wait. It sounds like you are now where I was like maybe 6 months ago.
Yeah. What's cool to me is when you look at the front end of this car, this is actually the angle we have right now. It is the only angle that you can see the vents from behind the front wheels. There's kind of a cool magic trick that happens when you physically step away from the vehicle. It goes flush. Like when you're standing in front of the car, you can't see the vents behind the wheels. You remember the last gen? There are these huge gens that were done in black. You called so much attention to them. The same with the hood scoop. The hood scoop lays so low, and so at the front of the car, you can only see it when you're standing right on top of it. When you walk up to it at a parking lot, you can't initially see those things. So the bodywork is actually a lot more toned down because of it. Triple exhaust is still there. There's a new front and rear diffuser. There's a lot more grille than there was before. But overall, I think it does look more mature. The little cut lines in the side that go right up into the headlights, that's straight up Integra, if you ask me.
Yep.
I loved the previous generation. It struck my inner man baby, and I adore it. This is a little bit less flavor, but honestly, it as a complete package, it looks incredible.
And you make a good point about the front vents right behind the front wheels hiding, depending on your perspective. From this perspective, we're looking at the car right now from passenger side 3/4 view. And I get just a little bit of the wing in the back. But if they were to take that Honda Civic Type R license plate off the front and show this picture for the first time, well, I mean, would somebody say, hey, that's a Civic Type R? And I think the answer is no.
Yeah, I agree with it. And Seth, I'm going to disagree with you regarding the wing. I grew up in the era of Lancer Evos and STIs where the wing was as high as the roof. And it's not... It doesn't look that big to me. Like it's not subtle. I can't go that far, but it does. I agree with Smith. It does look a little bit more mature take on an STI.
And keep in mind too, I mean, how many times a week do we see Porsche 911 GT3 something spy shots?
Sure.
Is there a bigger wing in the automotive industry right now than what you get on the 911 GT3?
I'm not even.
No, there is. It's going to be on the RS because we've seen the spy shots, and it is as tall as the roof.
I'm not talking about wing size. I'm just talking about the overall effect. I mean, it's high. Yeah. It's got this crazy curvature to it. Like I just haven't seen anything that's that sort of like, I guess, size and shape before, right? So
the wing is a little disjointed. I agree. Like it's weird. It kind of stands out, but I don't like the wing on the new GT3 RS either. I think it looks like it doesn't belong on the rest of the car, and that's why they make the Touring. And I think in Europe, Type R they do without the rear wing if you don't want it on there. So but the Civic hatch is a very, very handsome car. This one is 5 colors as an option, championship white being one of them. No yellow and no boost blue, at least at launch. Also kind of interesting, the rear doors are actually wider than on the standard Civic. So this gets its own unique door panel compared to the rest of the Civic lineup. So they can match it with the wider rear fenders.
That is interesting. I wouldn't have expected something like the rear doors to be different.
Yeah, and you look at them, they don't look any bigger, so that's surprising. But Clint, I think you had a good idea. I do think we should go around the horn here and say what we think the power is going to be, since we don't know right now. You came in at 310, right?
Put me down for 310. If it's Price is Right rules, 310 all day long.
310? Oh, if it's Price is Right rules, my first thought was 3.25. I'll go 320 just to be safe.
Okay, and Seth, why don't you go next? Because I want to go last.
So just seems fair. Just to be clear, the existing car is 306, right?
Correct.
Yes, in the US, and I believe it's 316 in Japan. The Japanese version makes a little bit more power because of different emissions rules.
And 295 pound-feet. I have the spec sheet right here.
Yeah, and I believe that's true everywhere in the world.
So Bruce, you're at 320. That was going to be my number.
I'm at 320. Clint's at 310.
All right, then I'm just going to go.
These are the same people that reduce the horsepower in the current Gen SI. Just keep that.
Well,
in mind.
and listen. But before I get
but they said it's the most powerful, so it's got to be higher than 306.
Yeah. Maybe
30 seconds. Yeah, it could be 306. It could and still be the most powerful, just by literal truth.
True.
Civic Type R is a handling car. I don't think that it needs more than 306 horsepower. I think it'd be great if it needed more, but I think that everything that it sounds like they've really focused on to make it amazing to drive, fast around a racetrack, and exhilarating, right? I think that stuff will be more impactful, even if it's 300 horsepower, right? I've driven a million cars. I can't tell the difference between 306 and the number that I'm about to give you, 333, just because I like all the threes. I legitimately think that it would be difficult to suss out, if everything else is completely equal, just a horsepower jump of 10 or 15 in a car like this. So 333.
333. So my take here is going to be a little odd because I'm going to say 303. Yes, I'm going to go down a little bit, and then I'm going to say 310 pound-feet of torque. Because Honda recently debuted their new CR-V. In their press release, they called the new CR-V the most powerful CR-V ever. And it's actually down like 6 or 7 horsepower from their previous generation, but it was up 15, 20 pound-feet of torque. So could Honda do the same thing here? Seth, it kind of goes along with what you just said. Would the Type R be better with a little less horsepower, but a little more torque tuned lower in the range where you can just use it a lot more? That could be the way it goes.
You are the only person in the United States of America that knows the horsepower figure of the CR-V. This is an enthusiast car. They need people to have it. Like, they need more.
Hey, I'm a professional.
They won't do
like 30% of the time, I'm a professional.
The marketing of the horsepower number is important for marketing. I think from an engineering standpoint, they're clearly benchmarking. We heard before, lap times at Suzuka, right? That's the stuff that the engineers are looking for. Can it get more grip? Can it get more downforce? Can it get nimbler overall? And all of those things. But I do imagine that they're probably going to raise the horsepower at least a little bit. I don't think they'll quite.
I can't wait to drive this. I agree. Yeah. Like, fumbling over the horsepower forever isn't super important. This is going to be like a really unique send off to their all combustion Type R. Going forward, there's a high probability that it will have some amount of electrification. So this being the send off to just the 4-cylinder turbocharged Type R, this is awesome.
No, and I mean,
those seats look fantastic. If for anyone watching on YouTube, we're looking at the interior now. Those seats look
super comfortable, but they ripped the damn heated seats out of it. They keep clearing room for Integra Type S, which they won't say exists, but they did the same pattern with Civic Si. They get rid of just a few of the creature comforts to make room for the Acura, which does bother me. I mean, this car will be.
Do we know, is red the only color you can get on the interior? Because the seats look comfortable, but I'm wearing freaking glasses right now, and it hurts my eyes.
Oh my god, I can't. I quit.
Oh, come on!
Seats are black.
The red interior is amazing. The red interior,
it's fine if it's like not on 12. Dial it back to like 7 or 8.
Red H badges make the whole thing red. Championship white for the paint, and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, no, I think it looks amazing. I don't even love white cars, honestly, even as an owner of a white car. But I think that Honda performance cars in white have always been a sweet spot for me. So
The seats are wonderful,
they're very red.
but the black
they
back
look super
seats are
comfy.
black.
They
Just
look
like
super
the front.
comfy. My eyes would just kill after a while looking at that.
But you
brighter
don't
red.
look at the seats when you're driving the car, dude.
Yeah, you look at both.
Not unless
seat-
something has
seat
gone
that
very
bright?
wrong.
A seat that bright, it would like.
Although
be in
I
my
guess the
peripheral.
the floor mats and the floor carpeting are basically exactly the same color, so I can't say
exactly.
too
I love
much.
It's a lot. It's a
I
lot.
love it.
Anyway, so
Anyways.
let's move on to another vehicle that just debuted. This one we saw Monday, I believe, yesterday. Yeah, Monday, and that is the new Chevrolet Blazer EV. Clint, this is another vehicle you're familiar with because you were filming it all day today as we were discussing this. So
Clint is
and
just
I wrote
out
the
and
story.
about, man.
So between the two of us, we should be able to talk a bunch about this thing.
Okay, you go first.
Deal. So this is another vehicle that, for better or worse, and sometimes it bothers me when automakers do this, is that we don't have all of the information about this vehicle yet. Unlike the Civic, we at least have some idea of things like range and power. But you're going to have 1LT, 2LT, RS, and SS trims eventually coming to this vehicle. We only know the horsepower output for the SS right now, and that is 557 horsepower, 648 pound-feet of torque, which is plenty. It has wide open watts. Chevy and GM and those guys, they love their watts to freedom. They clearly love
WTF? Wow.
Yeah. So apparently in WOW mode, it can get to 60 miles an hour in less than 4 seconds. It can charge at 190 kilowatts at a fast charger. So just very impressive numbers. And then in terms of range, which they don't come out and say this, but we write about these things enough that the range is going to be as high as 320 miles. Presumably, you're not going to get that in the SS, though. First off, if you could, they would have said that in the SS. Okay. Oh, okay.
Rear-wheel drive RS is 320, 290 in the all-wheel drive SS. So there's 3 battery packs and 3 different drivetrain configurations, which is weird for an EV. There's front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, and all-wheel drive, which is strange, admittedly. Best case scenario is 320-mile projection. The SS, the fast one with the most horsepower, is projected 290 with the 22-inch wheel that's on it, which is pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, those are big wheels, especially for an EV, because you generally want to get
big old wheels.
Well, for an EV, though, you generally want smaller wheels because you have less rotating mass. So then you can, it takes less energy to turn them. So then you can go farther on them. So doing that on 22s, you almost wonder if you got even 20-inch wheels still seem kind of big to me. You wonder if you couldn't do that. Anyway,
Clint, can I ask you a quick question here? Because I want to go back to the front wheel drive, all wheel drive, rear wheel drive setup. That's very, very odd. But I think it could be a selling point. Did anybody from Chevrolet talk at length about why they're doing those 3 offerings?
They said they just want more options for their customers. I mean, you don't get a frunk, which bothers me, but it has to do with packaging and that front axle specifically and where they needed to stuff all of it. To me, this could have been like the Mach-E floor plan or blueprint rather, and say, start it with rear wheel drive, add a dual motor, kind of follow that same path that others are doing. A front wheel drive EV just kind of makes it feel a little bit more economy like. And I believe the starting price for that front wheel drive model is $45,000. I would prefer power to the rear, but at the same time, you guys are cold weather experts, not me. I think you can get away with a front wheel drive car in the cold better than a rear wheel drive one, right?
Well, that's what I was thinking. If somebody is in an area where they might experience mild winter conditions, and they're nervous about something rear wheel drive and they can't afford all wheel drive, front wheel drive is sort of the go-to there, right? And if it's not a major inconvenience for an automaker to offer 3 different drivetrain options, I mean, it's kind of opening the door. I mean, I would go for rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, but
well, it's not an inconvenience because this is a ground-up EV platform, right?
Yeah.
So the reason that that's so unusual is because usually we've got a platform that's kind of built around having the drivetrain in one place, the driven wheels kind of in one place. So it's front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, but not any combination of the three. Can I just like throw out a fact for you guys though too, where this is concerned and where the so there are two things that are really impressive to me here. One is don't forget, in a bad year, GM sells 250,000 Equinox, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a good year, they sell over 300,000 of these. The starting price is not insignificant for the 1LT at 45 grand. I think that's below and before incentives. Is Chevy out of incentives? I don't know if you guys remember that.
I am fairly certain they are.
Mm-hmm.
Clint, do you know that for sure?
Yeah, thanks to the Bolt.
Okay. Oh,
we're talking about like a real world price of $45,000. So even assume, right, like do all that. That's well over the sale price of an existing Equinox right now. An ICE.
What about a Blazer though? A combustion Blazer?
Right. Then you're right in the wheelhouse. You're right in the wheelhouse of like that. That's kind of the point I'm driving to, right? At 45 to 50 grand, you're actually in the sweet spot of where people are buying cars today. Lots and lots of people are going to own this car, right? And I think it's the first time that we've, Bolt has kind of broken a lot of ground for General Motors and for Chevrolet. Bolt UV obviously is extending that a little bit. This is something that I think is a much more impressive looking product. It's got really interesting specifications. And the second thing that's impressed me the most as I'm looking at Chevy's website right now is all but one of the models, all but the base one, is available next year. Right. So we're not playing the game that we were playing a little bit with Silverado EV, where it's like, well, there's one coming out now, but it may not be the one that you want. And you have to win a lottery or sign up for it. And then the cheap one is coming out much later, yada, yada, yada. Like this is not a GM only problem. This is a lot of new EV automakers. Right. Do they get really close to the window of when they're ready to launch and sort of lose the excitement? Or do they have it, start with the excitement, but then have it be so far away that people get pissed off that they can't actually get in one of the cars and buy one of the cars? This feels they're right on top of it, right? Like these are going to be in driveways next year. I think this is a really meaningful product for General Motors in a lot of different ways, I guess is what I'm driving at.
So just to clarify, we were talking about timing here, so let's get that out there, timing and pricing. So summer 2023, so we have to assume roughly a year-ish from now, the 2LT and the RS will go on sale. 2LT will start at $47,595. RS will start at $51,995. Then later in 2023, we'll get the SS for $65,995. And then first quarter of 2021, we will get the 1LT, which is the base version, and that will be $44,995. And those are all estimated prices from GM or Chevy. So maybe they'll shift one way or the other, but that's the ballpark we're expecting.
And Seth, I think you had a good point. We're not going to get the entry level, the cheapest, but the 2LT is pretty darn close, and that's right up there at front coming out, right?
Yeah, it's a difference of $2,500, so that's not egregious.
No, and I dig the way this thing looks. It has. We were looking at pictures of the SS, I think, with the red interior. The red interior on this does better for me than the Honda. Sorry to say.
It's still pretty damn red.
Yeah, not in person. It was a lot.
It's not as red though. No, it's and I'm really interested to see how many of the front wheel drive models they sell.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Not a half-assed product from them. This is a truly well-rounded, good electric vehicle. I think it does matter that they're going to be the better part of 3 years behind the Mach-E to market. But to Seth's point, this will sell, and it should sell. People should buy this car. It makes sense as an overall proposition. But I mean, the Mach-E has, for the most part, every single thing that this car offers within, reason. The range is a little bit lesser in the Mach-E, but it still does hands-off level 2 driving. It still has, you can get a Mach-E GT with similar specs to the SS. So it's interesting.
Yeah, the only thing it doesn't have is, and I don't even, again, like I'm not trying to be glib here, but it doesn't have GM's baked in home, advantage with its owner base, right? There are a lot of people who will be interested in buying this because it's an affordable Chevrolet electric vehicle, frankly, right? And one that I think probably suits both the look and feel, in addition to the actual feature set of what a ICE car owner driver right now is expecting to get in their next vehicle in terms of size. I mean, certainly the feature set will probably blow whatever Equinox they're in away, or Traverse they're in away, and and it doesn't feel like it's going to be overly compromised in terms of the stuff that people worry about, the range and certainly not the power, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'll be very interesting to drive, but you guys, I think, are like me. Like I was reading our own coverage both at Motor One and at Inside EVs, our sister site, of the Lyriq, the Cadillac Lyriq, which is same platform, like a lot of the same ideas here, and coverage elsewhere in the industry too. The overwhelming opinion seemed to be that it was pretty damn good, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that this is the same, and also just like you guys, really interested to drive all versions of it. Front all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive, to sort of see which one stands out. So it's cool.
Isn't it funny how things work, where Mach-E beats this to market by a long shot, then Lyriq beats Lincoln to market with a full EV by a long shot? It's just weird how, they use similar parts, but
I mean, I'm just sitting here still trying to comprehend Mustang and Blazer competitors.
Right. I know. So
right.
odd.
And how many Ford people are upset that Mach-E is Mustang? How many Chevy people are upset that Blazer is going to be an electric crossover, without any real aspirations of off-road? Hey, I'm down with it all. Bring it on. Let's shake it up.
So as we were discussing this, I do want to say one thing, and that is that Super Cruise will be available on the Blazer EV. And it got me thinking, is this going to be, at least by the time it comes out, will this be the least expensive vehicle that you can get Super Cruise on?
You can get it on a Bolt.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That would beat it. Okay, never mind.
I believe this will have. Excuse me. I think it has hardware for their level 3 system too. They won't go too far in depth on that, but I believe the car has the hardware necessary to upgrade Super Cruise over time, which potentially could mean level 3 driving as well.
That's interesting. That could be a game changer as well, just because as that technology proliferates and it moves further down the lineup and more to things that, a reasonable middle class person can actually own, I think it makes a much bigger difference in the market, rather than being, $100,000 plus vehicles that are a little less likely for people to buy.
No, very cool. Coming to you next year. We're running a little long. We've got quite a few more here yet to go. What vehicle do we want to tackle next, guys? We've got Toyota Crown. Do we want to do Crown, or do we want to talk? Let's talk about Lucid. Can we do Lucid?
Cool. Yeah, let's do Lucid.
Let's talk about Lucid, because Lucid Air, I mean, this car has been out for a while now. People are aware of it. Not many people have had a chance to drive it, but Motor1.com editor-in-chief Seyth Miersma is on the VIP list. He went out and drove it in California. And if you haven't read his story yet at Motor1.com, go to Motor1.com. If it's not in our top slider, just do a quick search for Lucid. You'll find it there. We'll link it in the article that goes up every Friday at Motor1.com. Seth?
And you rated it 9.8 out of 10, which I think is the highest rating we've ever given a vehicle.
Is it the highest rating?
Mercedes S-Class got a 9.9, I believe.
Oh!
Okay.
And Clint, maybe this didn't get published, so we don't have to say it, but the Rivian that we drove. So here's the thing, you guys. Here's the thing about the rating system. Just to start off with this.
Yeah.
Our rating system is incredibly comprehensive. It's really well done. It's something that we're kind of tweaking and arguing about and debating, like how it needs to evolve all the time, right? And as you might expect with electric vehicles, there's so few of them, relatively speaking, that we've driven. The system is definitely a work in progress, right? So there are a lot of cases where when something like the Lucid, or Clint was in the Rivian before this, when it kind of like goes over and above a baseline that we've already established, it does like hit really hard, and it scores really high, right? So that's a long way of saying like there might be a chance down the road where we're adjusting our rating system and the scores get kind of right sized as a result of that. As the market starts to evolve, we need to evolve our ratings as well. All that said, I can stand firmly behind this car being a 9.9 because it is well and truly one of the most remarkable vehicles I've ever driven in my entire life, for sure. Despite the fact that it has some like really notable flaws and some things that feel like, stuff that's like teething pains for what is a really, really brand new brand into the world and a brand new product, all the way up to things where I think maybe they're a little screwy in terms of the direction that they're going with the product. But for the most part, it's hard to walk away from driving this car and not just be super, super impressed by it. So,
and how many? You drove a couple different versions, correct?
2 versions, yeah. So if you check out the review, and again, like we also covered this. We were lucky enough to have an invite for Inside EVs to do this as well. So we have 2 pieces. Mine focuses on the Lucid Air Grand Touring, which will ultimately kind of end up being the top of the range is the Dream Edition. That's the one that a lot of people have driven already before. That was limited. It's already sold out. They're not selling it anymore, right? So the Grand Touring is kind of one from the top of the range as it will stand right now. And then the Lucid Air Performance is the one that will ultimately be kind of the range topper. So it's a funny place. Like we're sort of at the top of the range, but not really compared to everything else is read about before. What that means though is for the Lucid Air Grand Touring Performance, 1,050 horsepower, right? Like a completely bananas, 2.6 second 0 to 60. Absolutely staggering. There's not even really a way to describe it. The performance that you're getting in this car at least from a straight acceleration standpoint. Again, all-wheel drive. It's got 2 electric motors. I think that they have the capacity to do. What was I reading? I think that they could probably make this car output as much as like 1,500 horsepower if they wanted to with the setup that they have.
Well, 1,050 already caused you to type an expletive in your review of yep. Don't floor this thing, Lucid owners. I'm paraphrasing, but yeah. that was a hilarious part of your article. You're like, attention, future Lucid owners, don't do this with some choice words in there. I loved it.
Well, we did. The thing is, they had us do the car's launch control, right? And it has all-wheel drive and it has all that power. And to be honest, like the car that I was driving most of the time was the Grand Touring, not the Performance, which has I'm blanking exactly the number. It's like 890 horsepower. It's not quite there.
That sounds right.
But we did a launch controlled start in like a long empty parking lot at this kind of small stadium in Northern California, and I have done a lot of launch control starts before. I've been in a lot of these sort of these kind of like dog and pony shows where they set you up to show you how impressive the car is, and I went in there thinking like honestly like, oh yeah, it's gonna be really fast, but I'm not my heart rate isn't gonna spike or anything like that.
Yeah.
And no joke, but when I walked away from that, I was like, I am terrified that somebody's going to try and do this on a public street because they are just going to. Of course
they will.
They are going to obliterate themselves and whatever they hit. Hopefully, like God hope it's not another vehicle in front of them, because the acceleration is just mad. It's completely crazy. So.
I love the way you describe it in your story. You're Chuck Yeager for about 3 seconds before you run out of courage or hit something.
Yeah. I mean, it really does. Like, and I think that we've all had, or for any of us who are lucky enough have had the experience with, the various like high performance Tesla modes and that first time where they're like the super high powered electric vehicle is really like taking your breath away. It is something that you will never forget. And it really is unlike any other kind of motoring experience that you'll ever have. This was that for me. I mean, I've done Tesla's ludicrous mode. I've never done the Plaid, which can be even faster than this. And yeah, it was eye opening. And like I said, a little bit scary.
I mean, you've driven, I mean, just to put this in context for listeners, I mean, Seth, you've been doing this for years now. You've driven like McLaren Senna. You've driven like some properly amazing machines, and I find it interesting that the sedan is the one that's like, okay, that scares me. But I mean, the power is just there.
Well, the funny thing is, like, it actually isn't scary. And I was kind of talking to some of the guys on this program ahead of time. The launch control scared me. The launch control, it surprised me more than anything, right? It surprised me to the point where I was scared when I was done. I sure definitely wanted to go back and do it again, but
of course.
But I thought I was gonna go right through the cones into the gravel trap that they had set up, after sort of joking that was the something that could happen. I was chatting with the guys, and I recalled going to the launch of the first Charger Hellcat, right? Or sorry, Challenger Hellcat, right? And that was a point, like we just like kind of got done with our briefing, talked about the engine. Everybody kind of knew what they were getting into. Got into the car. It was like an on-ramp. I think it was in Seattle, Pacific Northwest somewhere. On-ramp onto a highway, not even the fun part of the drive. And like, that car got so loose on me, like I floored it onto the highway, and it got so loose, and almost sideways is a little strong, but it definitely, like, the rear end scooted out, right? And immediately I was like, oh my God, what is happening in this car, right? There were a lot of moments like that in that vehicle. There were zero moments like that in the Lucid Air, other than on the launch control.
Other than launch,
it's an amazing amount of control and restraint. And just like, funneling of that energy into meaningful speed on a real road. And we drove this thing all over the place. We drove it on Skyline Boulevard, like out sort of between San Francisco and San Jose, a really awesome ridgeline road through the mountains. We drove it out to the coast. We drove it on some really aggressive handling roads. The car weighs 5,200 pounds or something like that. You don't lose sight of that at all when you're driving it. But the suspension really is set up in a way that it does not punish you at all. It keeps all of the power flowing really seamlessly to the wheels, to the road, and the whole thing just feels of a piece as you're driving at speed, whatever speed you choose. So, like I said, the driving experience was really like completely unlike anything I've been in before, and I highly recommend it.
What were some of the? Okay, Bruce, go ahead. I've been monopolizing.
I was curious about a very, very different aspect of this car. Like, obviously, it's incredibly fast. Obviously, like you're saying, it handles quite well. Especially for a vehicle of its size. But I think something that you hear those things and you think, oh, what does this do that a Tesla doesn't? And I think in your story, you reflect that really well, where you start talking about the interior, specifically the door panels. And you say there's linen-like fabric covering it. There's dark suede. There's open pore wood framed in matte aluminum. That this is a luxury vehicle in a truly luxury vehicle way, that there are super high-end materials and really well thought out applications of those materials in this car. To me, from just reading your story, obviously I haven't driven this, but this isn't something you should think of as pure sports sedan, go straight line, go real fast, blah, blah, blah. That this is, is it too far to say that this is an S-Class competitor, that it has that level of luxury?
That's probably too far. I think where I was going is saying, like, I think the design, and they're not trying to do that. There's something about an S-Class where an S-Class is meant to be opulent, right? An S-Class is supposed to be incredible materials, really over and above, really, kind of cosseting the driver or the passenger. Lucid goes for that too. They don't quite get there. I think that the thing that struck me about their interior design was, and really like the entire ethos of the brand. So they have Lucid to a certain extent. Don't forget, Lucid is standing on the shoulders of giants. Like it's right now, it's fun to call Lucid the kind of Tesla killer because it matches up so neatly right now with something like Model S Plaid, right?
Sure.
Lucid has, Lucid CEO Peter Rawlinson came from Tesla, right? Like they have a lot of talented engineers and designers that have come from the Tesla world. I think I bring it up in the story too. Like some of their top software folks, their UI and UX guys, come from Apple. They have the guy who's leading the charge for their sort of service and aftercare specialty has got a 40-year career in working in luxury brands, right? So one of the things that Lucid is doing, and I think it's very smart, is they are attracting the kind of cream of the crop in terms of automotive talent to come in and say, like, how do we do this right the first time? Where I think what Tesla was doing, to their credit, was really, really pushing the envelope and trying to get something that was truly staggering out the door. Don't forget, I drove my first Model S 7 years ago, right? Like Tesla's been there, done that, right? So you can't ignore the fact that they are the standard bearer right now for a very good reason. And companies like Lucid, and Clint can probably speak to this with Rivian too, have to come to the segment with like a totally kick-ass interior, because they know that that's one place that people have sort of heard that Tesla falls apart a little bit, right? So yeah, it's amazing. But I think it's out of necessity, and it's because they're facing a giant in Tesla right now in the EV market.
Real quick, because you've been talking about the power and the performance, luxury, and you also touched on some of the things that that just kind of weren't up to snuff. I mean, can you tell us just a little bit about some of the letdowns that you had with the car?
The two-tone paint.
Oh, come on, that's gorgeous.
I don't know how I feel about. How do you guys feel about the two-tone? First of all, I think it's almost like a cleared aluminum. I'm not sure if is it painted on the roof. I should probably know this, right? I was there, but
thank you for asking. Personally. That is how I feel about it.
No. We in this instance, I love it. I'm not necessarily a big fan of two tones, like with the floating roof on some vehicles, the way they do it. But in this application, I'd like it. I mean, I'm not jumping for joy over it, but I just certainly don't mind it. It adds a little bit of character to what might otherwise just be, something a little bland, maybe. I don't know.
It reminds me of
bland isn't the right
Cadillac
word.
sedans with the fabric tops.
No, it's not a Landau roof, and that was not fabric. That was always vinyl.
That was always vinyl.
Whoa. Excuse me on all counts.
But no, it is not like that, into my opinion. Maybe in 30 years people will think of it that way, but yeah, I disagree, Clint.
I think it's striking. I'm not totally in love with the exterior design. I think it's cool. It gets the job done. Like there's a lot of kind of eyeball to this car, right? Like you drive by and people notice that you're in it. I cannot look at the front of the car without seeing a 4th gen Celica, but with the black bar chromed out a little bit.
Ooh, okay. Now I can't unsee that. Thank you.
But listen, you can make an argument that it's objectively at least very striking, if not beautiful. The things that bother me about the car, and again, like maybe Clint, as a Southern California resident and somebody who's driven other glass roof cars, can weigh in here. Fully glass roof. They're offering one with a aluminum roof. Like a solid roof, which I think is probably the way to go. It's certainly the way that I would go. You get a big time greenhouse effect in there. They go to all, the folks at Lucid tell you all about the sort of UV protection that they put up there, the tinting essentially that they've done to the glass. And I do believe them. Like I didn't get a sunburn that I was there, but the car was hot all the time. Like it was really difficult to cool the thing down on and I know that it's less about the air temperature and more about the direct sunlight, but we were driving on a cloudless day for hours and hours, and I had the air conditioning on full blast, and it got cool eventually, but it took a long time. And for a company that like prides itself on efficiency, that's a really hard story, I think. So same with the Rivian though, right, Clint? The truck that you were in? Yeah,
Rivian joked with me. They said we're exploring options for a roof cover, and in my video I said they need to keep exploring because that would be a game changer. I mean, we do reviews on electric cars all the time. A lot of them have these beautiful glass roofs, and it's amazing. You get in them, especially as a rear seat passenger, you get to see everything. But the retractable shade makes a huge difference. Polestar 2, you cook like a cheeseburger. Rivian, you cook. I mean, yeah, in places where there's a lot of sunshine, which is where people buy a lot of electric cars. I totally agree with you. It's to the point now where our producer Kyle reminds me, he's like, "You're going to talk about the roof, aren't you?" I'm like, "You're sweating right now, aren't you?" So,
yeah. And there's no sort of retractable cover or anything in the Lucid On the glass roof? Wow, okay.
Nope. Some of the guys were wondering about why they didn't do that. I don't even know what it's called, but there's the sort of photovoltaic, I guess, like technology where you can make it more or less opaque. Mercedes did that years and years ago with their Magic Sky roof. I would imagine that's a power draw thing. Not sure why they didn't do it, or maybe they just thought that they were getting enough coverage with the UV protection that they actually had in there. But yeah, that's not great. This software, there's a lot of stuff that I know will be fixed, right? There's a lot of this stuff that they make go to great lengths to talk about over-the-air updates. They even showed us kind of the next not quite ready for primetime rev of the infotainment, the full, it's like a 32 or 38 inch span across the driver's side. That's and then big. A really big, like 12 and a half or 12.3 inch tablet that you can do some more stuff with. All great, crisp, great graphics, fast processing, that sort of stuff. Some of it's a little silly, like going back to Tesla and Rivian, like why do I need to use the touchscreen to adjust my mirrors and my steering wheel and things like that? I had a little bit of an argument with somebody at dinner from the company saying, I actually, I have kids. My wife and I swap drivers sometimes. Like it's not just because I'm an auto journalist that I move the seat around that I have to adjust my driving position. I adjust my driving position in my own car fairly frequently, just based on, well, maybe I want to go a little bit faster and I want to be closer to the wheel, right? In the Lucid, you've got to do that all through a touchscreen, which is pretty onerous.
It does have like memory seats where you can just like, I want setting 1 or 2.
I'm sure there are memory seats, right? So that's a good point. You could probably move between a driver profile setting or even like a variation of one. I just didn't get that deep into the software set. So that's a great point, Bruce. Like, I had 6 hours in the car or something like that. So I didn't quite get to live with it. But
but I'm with you. Burying some of these basic functions in a touchscreen. Don't reinvent the wheel, guys.
Tesla
it's very easy to put a switch on there.
The AC vents you have to do through the screen. Right. Never in the history of time has somebody complained about adjusting their vent like that to get cooler. But, open up 3 menus and toggle around the little thing on the screen. That's a weird fix.
We were talking with Brad Hansen last week. The joy of either the 3 knobs or the 3 sliders where you just got temperature, fan speed, and location. Like it hasn't been beat to me like that. It just works. You select those 3 things and that's
but the future is, everything is digital control, right? So it has to be the future. Has to be the future. Well, speaking of future, we've got to move on here. We're getting a little long, but Seyth,
doing okay. I think we can get this to work.
We're doing okay. But Seyth, thank you for telling that story. I mean, your context with the Lucid, with just your years of experience driving, I don't think you're going to really find that anywhere else. So go to motor1.com, look up his article, read that article. You can go there every Friday to get a little preview of what we're doing on the podcast. Of course, you always want to go to YouTube Motor One Podcast, like, follow, subscribe, smash every single button you can find. We're on audio platforms, Google, Apple. There's one that I can't even remember how to pronounce that I saw that we were on here just a couple weeks ago. Wherever you find us, like and subscribe. We're going to take just a little brief intermission to go over some quick some quick comments. Do we got a little bit of time for that, Bruce?
Yep. Let's do it, man.
Let's do that. Why don't you go first? I've got a big email pulled up. Do you have some of the YouTube comments ready?
Is the email you have from Eric?
It is.
Okay, then I will let you handle that, and I will do some of the other comments then.
Okay, well, let me read this email because this is a great email that we got in here from Eric.
So just to keep things short, I was just going to do his first 2 paragraphs. The last bit with the cheap cars, it's interesting, but yeah.
We're thinking alike, man. This is a little creepy, I gotta say. Eric writes, "Hey guys, just got around to watching Rambling About Cars number 78. What was 78, Bruce? That was a Goodwood. Yep. Goodwood review. Here are my thoughts on some of the points discussed. The Festival of Speed is one of the greatest automotive events these days and definitely an item in my bucket list. The McMurtry was just otherworldly in seeing the latest performance cars. Take to the Hill was truly amazing. I was not a fan of the TV direction of the official stream, though, as they showed only every other car, and I missed a lot, which meant I didn't bother watching the streams beyond the first few days and instead looked at pics and read stories about the event, hopefully at motor1.com.
Hopefully.
As for the new Ioniq 6, I love it. Of course, the Hyundai Ioniq 6 recently debuted. We're going to talk a little bit more about Hyundai later, so stay tuned on that one. One of the best mainstream electric cars, second only in my mind to the Porsche Taycan and Audi e-tron GT, plus, of course, the Rimac and the Evijas. Okay. I can never pronounce that Lotus correct, guys.
Evija, right?
What is it, Clint?
Evija.
Evija?
Evija.
So the J is just okay. We're going off the rails here, but it wouldn't be a podcast if I didn't mispronounce something. So yay!
Same, apparently, man.
The wheels don't bother me too much. I'm not a massive fan of the double spoiler. The car overall gives me Tatra 87 vibes. Okay,
I can see where he's coming from there.
Which was the inspiration for the Beetle, so I can see where the comments likening the Ioniq to the original Volkswagen are coming from. Okay, I can see that too here. I would definitely have one over any Tesla, even the Plaid, but for around 40 to 50,000, it's going to cost. I'd rather have a used Panamera, also a bit of a lookalike, or an M5, cars tailored to totally different buyers who are nowhere near ready to give up on internal combustion engines. Eric, you were also talking about some of the cheap car challenge. We'll try to get to that in a future episode if we can. But guys, your quick thoughts on Goodwood and the Ioniq 6, Clint? Seth, well, what were your thoughts on some of that stuff there?
Goodwood's amazing. Go. I love the Goodwood Festival of Speed. I love Revival. I think that if you ever have an opportunity to go, it's fantastic. Of course, it's cool to watch the coverage, watch people go up the hill. I think this was a really special year. We had Ben Collins, formerly of Top Gear and the Stig, was driving the Lucid Air GT Performance up the hill this year very quickly. I can't remember what his time was, but he and I were chatting a little bit because he was on the event and he was talking a bit about watching the McMurtry. So it's a great time. I know it's a long haul and it's expensive to go, but as a bucket list item, go with your car buddies, go with your kids, something like that. I think it's even worth showing up just to see what's in the parking lot, to be totally honest. So it's super fun.
Yeah, don't do what senior editor Jeff Perez did and take a helicopter.
Or do.
and skip the parking lots. You have to do a little bit of car spotting in the parking lots.
Fair.
And for anyone watching on YouTube right now, the Tatra that Eric referred to is what we are looking at right here.
Yeah,
do not see the relationship.
A little bit at the back. I kind of see what he's talking about, but in large part I agree.
Little bit at the back. Little bit.
Anyway,
Clint, anything on Goodwood or the Ioniq 6 before we move on here?
Ioniq 6, I have a lot to say, but I feel like that's saved for a later date. We know a little bit about it.
Give us 2 sentences. You get 2 sentences.
I think the back of it looks like that really big plane that has 2 stories, which is not a good thing.
Okay. The 747 or the
Airbus A380. It has
the A380.
Okay.
Elegance of a beluga whale from the rear. Ioniq 5 is a beautiful car. I would actually spend my own money on one given the opportunity. Ioniq 6 is a miss for me, but the specs make a lot of sense, including the price point. I think they will sell lots of them. And the first time I see one on a road, I will wave to it and ask why.
And we'll sort of have a little bit more Ioniq 6 content later on in the podcast here. Bruce, we got time for a couple comments on from YouTube?
Yeah, I was trying to pull up a picture of the plane that they nicknamed the Beluga that Boeing made because they used it to haul rockets and stuff, but that'll be for another day. You and I are plane nerds. That's fine. Anyway,
yeah.
So recent he has been subscribing to the show for a year. Gino Nix. He said,
thank you for the subscription.
Absolutely. He said about last week's episode, Brad Hansen's enthusiasm was infectious, great guest, fun to listen to his commentary. And I agree. I want to get Brad back someday. He was a really fun guest. We nerded out with him a lot. It was a good one.
Yeah, I was talking. Bruce was having some technical difficulty, so I was talking with Brad for 5 minutes, and it's just like, this is dangerous. This should not be happening right now because I want to buy every single 80s car I can find.
Yep. And then this is from Ted Adam Green, who is a longtime listener, longtime subscriber, longtime commenter. This came from 7 days ago as of this writing. So great ramble. And he is talking about where we were discussing NFTs. And his reaction was, NFTs are merely the new collectible of the day, and as such has whatever value we crazy collecting obsessed humans give them, just like Beanie Babies, baseball cards, and comic books. So I agree with you all in that one. It's hot and fun for It's hot and fun for some and not for others. I love the discussion about patina. Smith, you and I kind of disagreed and agreed on some bits about that. Some cases keep historical reasons, personal reasons, provenance, or restore. There's no real value except to be made whole again are obvious. And there's a gray area in between. But for goodness sake, never, ever, ever clear code it unless it's for humor on a beat down winter banger. Peace out, guys. Have a great summer and keep on rambling. So do you guys have any, Clint, Seth, do you have any NFT thoughts about the automotive industry or about patina? Do you restore them or do you bring it back to the original, or is there somewhere in between?
No, but I like these people's comments. That was a lovely comment. Where are they on all the first look videos we published? They are not found in the same comment thread. That was a wonderful comment. I agree with everything he said. That is a surprisingly neutral take on NFTs too. That guy for president.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, hey, Clint, you make a good point. We're on Motor One Podcast, but you also need to check out Motor1.com on YouTube for all of our first drive special look videos, all kinds of cool stuff. Clint just said it. They need your comments too. We all need your comments. So go and follow and subscribe and comment everywhere. And Seth, I know you have something to say about NFTs, don't you?
Oh man, I don't even know if we have time to go down the rabbit. I'm not anti NFT at all. I am an NFT.
We aren't either.
Yeah, I'm on board. I'm on board.
I think that what's annoying to some like traditional car folks is that it feels like they're kind of an imposter. They're they're fronting in a space where they don't belong. And that might be true, right? I think that the interesting thing right now is that we just don't know what will hold value like in the future. We don't like there's a kind of a revolution happening with different kinds of digital currencies. It's hard to believe in them because it's so changeable and there's so much news all the time. So I honestly don't know. I haven't like studied the subject a lot. I only know, and I think the debate that we've had a lot in our chat room is that it's hard to push them aside as a news story item because there's a large audience interested in them right now, right? And so like our job in a broad sense is to bring car news to people. And when car companies are investing in NFTs as something that they think are valuable, then I think it's worthwhile to bring that story to Motor One readers. And that is that in and of itself is an interesting part. Also, love patina. Totally agree. Don't clear code it. Seems like the wrong way to go. And yes, I also just wanted to quickly add, because as we were reading that letter, I looked up and I realized that when I said 4th gen Celica as a Lucid Air reference, what I meant was the 5th gen Celica. That's okay. I apologize to everybody. Hopefully we'll add this link or something like it to the notes so people know that I'm not an idiot.
Send Toyota fans, send your hate email to podcast@motor1.com. Attention, Seth. How is it possible that you don't know the difference between a 4th and 5th gen Celica?
It's embarrassing.
Hey, we're only human.
Yep.
We're only human.
If you can vamp for me for just a second, I am downloading one of those images, so I will share that super quickly. But while we're doing that, let's talk about another Toyota, the new Toyota Crown, which is another vehicle. Clint has been very, very, very busy recently, and he got to check out
Clint
the
and
Toyota
Seth.
Crown.
I mean, you two are like the just the hardest working guys in the industry.
Yep.
And we appreciate you spending some time here.
James Brown of Motor One.
But yeah, Clint, you and on YouTube now we're looking at the 1990 Celica G. That's a good looking car. Damn it,
yeah.
Bruce.
A buddy of mine had one of those.
I just got done saying I want to buy every 80s car, and that's on my. A couple weeks ago or last week when we did our cheap car challenge, that was actually one of my finalists too. Damn it,
I haven't been able to find one of those cheap in ages. All the ones around here have rusted out.
That's a good looking car.
Rambling about cars, listeners and watchers, let us know if you want a full Celica episode sometime in the near future. We'll do it.
Oh, we'll do that.
Remind me to be sick on that day.
Hell yeah. As long as we can talk about Celica Supra. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
On board. Let's talk about a newer Toyota before we like completely lose all of the listeners here. And maybe the Toyota Crown will lose some more. But I don't know.
This first image definitely will, because it's the worst image we have of this vehicle.
No.
Clint, you saw this vehicle. If you go to motor1.com, we actually have a really good write-up and a first look video of the new Toyota Crown. And if it sounds familiar, in the United States, it was here like back in the 70s.
In the United States, you were born in the 1950s.
But it's coming back. It'll be available in the United States. It's a sedan. What is it, Clint?
I was about to say a mistake, but that would have been too crass.
I don't think it is. I think the two-tone color scheme that they showed in the first images is a travesty, and it looks terrible. And here in a second, we will see it in a single color, and it looks fine. Honestly, it might look good even.
If you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen the car yet, it looks like a sedan, but it has a higher ride height. It's like an SUV, and exactly how does Toyota classify it, Clint? They classify this as a sedan?
It's a high riding sedan. So in Toyota's mind, the person who buys this car wants a sedan but enjoys the lifted ride height of an SUV. In Toyota's mind, this is also going to be a millennial with money that purchases this car.
I don't know about
apparently they're the first people in the world to be young and care about how tall a car is when you're getting in and out of it.
But wait 1 second. This has been done before, and sometimes well. The AMC Eagle did this exact thing in the 1980s.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Let's start with some more relevant.
Whoa.
Whoa. How about cars after Reagan was in office? Like the Volvo S60 Cross Country.
The Outback SUS, the Honda Cross Tour,
the
those
SUS.
are all one generation cars. They didn't succeed, not by any standard.
I'm kind of with Clint there a little bit. I'm not like it. I get where Toyota is trying to go with the Crown. I feel like they're trying to satisfy the people that still want a sedan, and then also get the same person to step away from an SUV to step into this Crown. I mean, is it going to work? I mean, straight up, time will tell.
Sure.
The powertrains are very interesting. It's hybrid only with a new variation of a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that also has hybrid power. It's the same powertrain that's going to be in the new RX 500hF Performance, which will be the fastest version of the Lexus RX. I'm glad to see the powertrains that they're putting in this car. That makes a lot of sense to me. Very forward thinking on Toyota's part. Toyota's not ready to go completely into the full electric pool just yet. Their hybrids are far and away too successful. So this could work in that regard, I think.
Right. You can get this thing with up to 340 horsepower, which is a good chunk of power, and that's with a 2.4 liter 4-cylinder and 2 electric motors. They're estimating you'll get 28 miles per gallon combined out of that, and it's got a 6-speed automatic rather than a CVT that we would usually see in this type of setup. So it's kind of got some interesting, like the two-tone looks bad, but mine is, don't order it looking like that. Otherwise, this thing's cool, in my opinion. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with me, but I dig it.
I
don't think there's anything wrong with you. It is different. I don't know that I'm in love with it. I certainly don't hate it. But I've always had a weak spot for like the weird stuff that nobody else loves. So I don't know how good my opinion matters here. You know?
Yeah.
I think that anytime an automaker comes to market with something and they're targeting they're targeting like a 30 to or 28 to 30 or 41-year-old audience or something with this.
Yeah,
right?
but respectfully, that's crap. This is an Avalon buyer reincarnated. Let's just
that's what I'm saying. Like that. My point is that like anytime they lead off with that, it's usually a red flag saying like they don't actually really know who's going to buy it, right? Because they're going after the most attractive demographic, the people that they would like to buy it. But time after time after time, what we found is, well, sorry, the people who are actually buying new cars are still usually in their 60s in the US, right? The average age of the buyer is like much older than they would expect. So it's more of a marketing ploy than it's anything else. This one's strange. Like, it's not certainly not beyond Toyota to make a mistake in terms of like segmentation and like how they're going to sell cars. But like, say what you will about their products, Toyota is very good at selling cars, right? They have that down, especially in the US. So for them to put a lot of kind of muscle and attention into this one, I don't know. Like, all I know is they have product planners that are probably more insightful about this segment than certainly I am right now, and I'd be curious what their research is telling them there, because it's definitely, I agree, like it's not a millennial car, and it is a real weird play, not the least of which, what do you guys think about the whole, like they're putting a lot of like effort into bringing what is essentially like a revered Japanese nameplate into the US. Did they talk about this at all? Do they think that there's enough cachet in the Crown brand because the world is so small now that it's important in the US? Or is it just like a trademark that they own,
Even if they think it's important enough, it's not, because they didn't put the Crown logo on the car because there's zero equity in it in the States. They just put the word on it instead of actually putting the logo that's used in foreign markets. So I don't think they care that much about, like, we told people immediately, hey, this car's been around in Japan since the beginning of the time. It's revered there. I don't think that means anything really to this market. It's just called Crown in giant letters on the back of it.
That part is confusing to me, because like when Toyota came to this market in the late 50s, one of their first vehicles was the Crown, and then they got rid of it, and they've been around here, for decades and decades, and now they decided it was the time to bring back that nameplate that no one remembers. Like, I agree on that part.
Crown is going places in the States. This is a weird initial way of doing it, but mark my words, there will be another version of Crown to come here at some point. That's not confirmed. It's just speculation. And I think beyond that, it'll tie into their EV plans as well.
Thank you for that segue, because we know that there are other Crown vehicles that are ready and done and could be. Oh, I hit the wrong tab there. That there's an entire sub-brand of Crown vehicles. Hold on, and I will show the people on YouTube who are watching that. Right.
I mean, there's the sedan. There's an SUV that,
and that's the funny thing. There's a true sedan.
Yeah, there is a true sedan. There's the lifted sedan. There's an SUV
and like a shooting brake thing.
And what they
Japan
call the
gets
sports.
4 of them.
Yeah. And so anyone watching on YouTube now, we're looking at them all from front to back. We have the Crown that they debuted. We have the Crown Sports, the Crown Sedan, and I believe they call it the Crown SUV or the Crown Crossover. Forgive me for not knowing the exact name, but they introduced
Everybody
all
loves
of these
the
vehicles.
sub-brand these days.
Evidently. It's odd.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Toyota has I feel like they have a fairly decent lineup now. It almost feels like maybe they're trying to grasp at some straws a little bit. Is anybody else getting that sense?
It's a mid-market move, right? So they're doing, like, look at all this usually, where we usually see this is a luxury brand. A luxury brand will have a performance brand, and then, long ago, and these are kind of thicker on the ground now than ever, they'll have that sort of middle performance trim, right? So Audi S line, like what's the BMW also, BMW, all the Germans do all of this, right?
Yeah,
and performance,
and sport, and yep.
Yeah, so I think what Toyota has is, like, clearly Toyota has an incredibly successful luxury brand in Lexus. They've got like main market Toyota, and they're probably looking at Crown as the ability to sort of split the difference, especially as MSRPs are rising. People are owning cars longer. Maybe they want it to do a little bit more for them in the time period of ownership, and they can get a better sticker price on this. So it's not an unusual kind of segmentation. Like, it also existed way back when too. Like, Buick exists because of this, right? In the General Motors lineup back in the day.
That makes sense to me if it was a full EV lineup, but it's not.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. But it also, with the hybridization too, Like clearly Toyota is trying to like squeeze as much money as possible out of the brand equity there. Well, it's not really brand equity, but the equity that they have in selling hybrids to people right now. Yep. And if your point is correct, Clint, and it probably is, that this is actually going to be sold to a kind of an older audience. An older audience might not be as readily on board with a full EV as they are with a hybrid, which turns around good gas mileage. So if you're looking at something that like ups the sticker price by $10,000 or $15,000 real world versus what they buy with a Toyota, it gets them good gas mileage. They like the fact that they're in a larger vehicle and they have 4 to choose from. You can sort of understand the basic business case there. Now, does it work? I don't know. Like I said, I started with this, Toyota has famously sold a lot of cars. So it's definitely, it would be interesting to dig into that sort of like segmentation and how they're looking at the market. But I'm not ready to just toss it out the window as like a complete failure, especially knowing that they're doing a full lineup of these right now.
True. I mean, I see this and it's like, okay, we don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't know if this entire lineup is coming to the US.
I don't know that we know that any of them are coming.
I mean, the
other
Crown,
than the one.
The one. I mean, if these come into the U.S., the first thing that pops into my mind is, okay, what are they going to get rid of?
They don't need to. They would sell that one, the red one, with they could call it whatever they want.
And it might be a play for larger Asian markets too. Like this absolutely could be a play for China, right? Where the Crown brand might have a lot more equity in large cars, especially chauffeur-driven cars, long wheelbases, make a ton of sense. They've been selling a lot of those there forever. So whether or not you're right. Like if some portion of this comes to the US, that would be more interesting than if they're kind of playing this entire sub brand for Asia. That has a more kind of direct line of sight to understandable revenue to me, at least.
So we got about. Oh, do you mind if we transition to the last Smith, or do you have?
That's fine. I was just gonna say,
go for it.
One way or the other, the Crown. It's interesting. It has my interest. I'm very interested to see how it goes forward. But yeah, I was ready to transition us over to something that I think we're all probably really anxious to talk about, or at least just kind of fawn over a little bit.
We got about 10 minutes here, and
a little bit of time. Is it the best for last? We're talking about we're talking about the Hyundai's 2 concepts that they released.
I think we're going to focus on the 74 though, because we're going to talk about both of them, obviously.
We're going to talk about both of them here. We've got the RN22e, which is that the future Hyundai Ioniq 6N? We don't know. There's been speculation that it could preview the N if they're going to do an N. Actually, Hyundai did say that they were. Clint, you act like you have some inside information here. No, Hyundai's announcement.
Car is.
They did say that it previewed a future N model. So take it as you will. It's an Ioniq 6 that has basically a little bit of a body kit. They have a nice spoiler on it.
Drift mode.
It has all kinds of electronics going on underneath. It's got the same power as the Kia EV6 GT. It's the 577 horsepower all-wheel drive setup. So that is unchanged. But Hyundai says this is their first actual high-performance study on their eGMP platform.
Is that true though? Because haven't we seen Ioniq 5 and spy shots?
Yeah, they just won't acknowledge that that's real yet.
Okay.
Well, the mission of the RN22e is they're exploring the aerodynamics and various torque vectoring capabilities that can be tied with the Ioniq 6 or other possible, in air quotes, Hyundai performance applications. So this isn't necessarily the big power booster. It's the, hey, let's go out and see how well we can carve corners. And I mean, I'm a fan of the Ioniq 6 styling and just putting the big wing on the back and dropping it down a little bit. I think it looks pretty cool. I'm a fan of that car. We'll move on to the next one because I know everybody is a fan of this. And I swear to God, guys, I don't think I've ever seen more people on the internet agree. Like on forums, like in Motor One social channels, comments on this article. I'm talking about the Hyundai N Vision 74. This is a concept. It's based, the design is based loosely on the old Hyundai Pony concept car from 1974. And if you're not on YouTube, go to YouTube. If you can't go to YouTube, go to motor1.com and search up Hyundai. This will be near the top. There's no other way to say it. It's like the best 70s, 80s wedge car you can imagine. I've heard some people say this is how the new DeLorean should look.
Those people are wrong, but that's okay.
I mean, it's just a very cool kind of retro styled wedge car. Yes. But it's got 671 horsepower. It's rear wheel drive only. There's one electric motor at each of the rear wheels.
It's a fuel cell.
Well, technically,
technically this vehicle only exists in renderings as far as I know. So
there's
real.
There are real vehicles. Both of these that's actually a good point to bring up really quick, Bruce, because I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, yeah, too bad they're not real." No, folks, these are real. These are real cars that Hyundai has built. Okay. We actually have a video if you go to motor1.com. Some video footage of these cars running around on a track. So they are real. 671 horsepower, rear wheel drive only. Its mission is also to explore performance applications for Hyundai. And yes, it is a hydrogen fuel cell car, but it's also a battery electric car. Hyundai calls this a hybrid, but it's not a hybrid with an internal combustion engine. They're utilizing a fuel cell with battery electric power to explore how that might bring benefits to future performance applications. Hyundai does say right off the bat that the car is able to run at cooler temperatures. I don't know exactly how. They didn't really explain that, other than I guess maybe the hydrogen is kept cooler, but that's their takeaway thus far. It operates a little bit cooler. Also with a hydrogen fuel cell, in theory, if there's a hydrogen fueling network that you can access, you drive your car on electric power. Maybe you need a little bit more range. You pull into the hydrogen fueling station, you fuel up the fuel cell, and away you go. But yeah, 671 horsepower, rear wheel drive. It looks fantastic. We have no idea what the interior looks like. Hyundai didn't offer anything for the interior. But we don't need to look. Like we don't need to look inside. It's just
right. I feel like the outside designer looked at every cool car or every cool thing from the 80s and was just like, yeah, let's do that. So this image right here, it's got turbo style wheels, which I still think are cool. You can see it's got rear window louvers.
It's got louvers. It's
got these pixelated tail lights, which they're actually doing on the Ioniq 5, but and the 6 as well. But just an interesting. They're just like 80s, sure, let's do that. And it's really cool.
And like I said, I mean, I looked around in quite a few places just because I was curious as to what other people were saying. Honestly, the only negative comments that I saw were people saying, "Oh, it's vaporware, it's not real." Well, no, right. It actually is real. Hyundai says it has a range of 373 miles. Is it coming to production? Probably not. Hyundai hasn't said anything either way, yay or nay, other than to say this is a concept car that they're using to explore various high performance applications. A lot of people in comments, in forums, have been just praying to the Hyundai gods that this will go into production. I've even there were some comments in our Motor One article. I'm just going off memory here. One person in particular was like, "I can't believe Hyundai finally makes me want an electric car." Something to that effect. It's like, I mean, that's a pretty powerful statement. I mean, when you consider a lot of the performance-minded people, I mean, you see a slow acceptance of electric performance taking place, but there's still a lot of you're going to take my V8 or my internal combustion engine from my cold dead hands. So that was a very profound comment to hear somebody say, "I can't believe Hyundai makes me want to have an electric performance car." It looks
So,
fantastic. And
Myth, you and I love it. But let's let our guests weigh in.
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm running. I'm
curious.
just babbling on here. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think it's dope, man. I think it looks really, really good. I'm just like you guys are saying, like, I'm excited to see what actually becomes of it. I break out in a light rash when I hear about Hyundai talking about hydrogen powered cars in a way that's less than concrete, because I know that it has been used. Listen, I love the Hyundai brand. I like a lot of what they're doing right now more than ever, right? I think that probably the car, the Ioniq 6, but it's not an Ioniq 6 performance version, is more interesting to me, because I think that's got more real world application right now, and it'll mean more to more people. But the design language here is incredible. I just don't know, like, when they say that it's got a hydrogen fuel cell powertrain, it makes me think it's a way of them not really fully committing to it, because it's been a red herring for a long time. Like, this is amazing technology. It's not quite ripe yet. The market isn't ready for it. We don't have the infrastructure, but if we could, we would love to build it, and it would be amazing. It's like, well, why not put that same like effort and design resources into something that we know has like a firm footing in the marketplace right now, especially when you're building some really class leading electric vehicles. I think that the styling is incredible. I know everybody, and you guys know me, I fight against this thing looks like that thing all the time. But the first time I saw it, I got big Alfa Romeo SZ vibes off of this because of the chunkiness and sort of blockiness of it. It just looks very like, late 80s, early 90s to me. And it's cool. It's bringing a lot of energy to Hyundai right now. And that's probably the main goal, is to get a lot of attention to what they're doing overall as a brand. And Smith, you made an excellent point, right? Like, whether it's legitimate or not, to have somebody say like, hey, this is making me refocus a little bit on what Hyundai is doing. That's exactly the point of a concept car, right? So job well done, I would say.
Right. I got to think there are people over at Dodge right now that are prepping their electric replacement for the Challenger, thinking, how do we reach our people like Hyundai is reaching people right now? It's just, it has an impact. Clint, what do you think, man?
Yeah, just real quickly. I mean, I love electric cars with all my heart, and Seth is right that they are more pragmatic. They make more sense on the street. That's a race car. And electric cars don't go around racetracks for very long. So this notion of we don't want to pollute, but we do want to go very fast on a racetrack, I think has some place in our future. If that means just racetracks, stash hydrogen filling stations, fine with me. If I trailer in my really cool, whatever the hell that thing is, and I get to put it around a racetrack with actual range, not just, 2 laps and done, then I think it has a really important future, and using it as a basis for studying things like that makes a lot of sense. Fuel cell cars are very complicated, and I don't quite believe that that's just going to be a brilliant performance car, but the idea of it is very exciting to me for the future.
I agree. And real quick to add on that, Porsche is kind of trying, and not that this is a Porsche, obviously, but the concept that we saw during Goodwood, and its name is escaping me, but the electric version of the 718, they said it could do a Porsche Carrera Cup race, which is 35-40 minutes on a charge. So yeah, that's not that much time on a track. I'll admit that to you. But it is at least a full race that those cars were doing. Yeah. So we are moving in that direction. It's just going to take time and better chemistry and better technology.
Formula E is running full races on a single battery. Like they weren't when they started, but they are now, right? So yeah, it's absolutely, it's a matter of being limited to how much power they're able to have. But yeah, like we're certainly getting to a place where that's a possibility.
Hot take, you want to do a race, 2 cars. You drive car 1 for 40 minutes, it runs out, you pick up car 2 and you go. There you go. Full race.
That was Formula E season 1 through 3, right? Or 1 and 2 or something.
1 through 3, I think. But anyway, I think that's the show for tonight. But I want to give our guests a chance to shout anything out that they're doing, that they want to promote, that anything. So Clint, I started with you before, so Seth, you get to start this time. What's been going on? Anything you want our audience to know about that you can tell them about?
Nothing here. Like, I guess I've got another in my inbox right now. I've got another episode of the 5 question series or instance of the 5 question series from my good buddy Joy Reuter, who, speaking of like automotive design, he does some of the craziest automotive designs and concept cars in the world. He's got a car in the Peterson right now that I've been meaning to write about for a very long time, and I have like half a story written, and then he sent me this interview too. So check that out. That's going to go up on Thursday, I believe. I'm excited to share that with everybody.
Real quick, for anyone who only listens to the podcast, I don't know if those people exist, but to let them know, you have been doing a series called 5 Questions on Motor One. It goes up every Friday. This will be the 4th or the 5th entry. 4?
Yeah, I think it's 4. Yeah,
4?
I think it's 5. I think this will be 5. Yeah,
4. It's one of the. But anyway, where you have been asking interesting people. Jason Camisa was last week, as far as I know, and you've been asking them 5 questions. You asked, Elise Artoli, is that her last name?
Yeah, I think it's Elisa. She's the granddaughter of the gentleman whose name is escaping me now, who owned Lotus at the time when they were developing the original Lotus Elise, right? So she's the namesake of the Lotus Elise.
The namesake of the Lotus Elise. No, that's very cool.
And I can't share it right now, but she also has the world's coolest email address. But
okay,
yeah, don't share that.
You shouldn't share that.
No, I won't do it.
Censor
it's fun. So if anybody out there has any is or knows anybody who is fascinating who'd like to participate, this is kind of what I'm calling a mini interview series. It's the same questions every time. We get cool car related people to answer them, and it's been really fun. So check it out. Yeah, 5 questions on motor1.com. Read it.
And Clint, what about you? Anything coming up? Anything you've done? Anything you want to promote? Go for it, man. This is your time to shine.
It's always my time to shine. Constantly adding new things to both the Motor One YouTube channel and the Inside EVs YouTube channel. We have new reviews going up almost on a weekly basis. And like we've already discussed, we have our Civic Type R video, which is now live on the Motor One YouTube channel. So go over there and leave a nice comment about patina.
or not a nice comment about patina. And let me also do a quick shout out, since Seth didn't do it, I'll do it for him. The Motor One Happy Hour every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Yep. You go on YouTube, you go on Facebook. If you like the podcast, it's sort of like the mini podcast with Seth and the editors just talking about stuff that they're driving. Whether it's stuff like Porsche, I mean, whatever they have going on, man. So every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern time, you can catch those guys live. You can interact. You definitely want to check that out as well.
Yeah,
I've got a green Shelby GT500 right now that I'm dying to talk about on Friday. So look forward to that.
There you go. So if you listen to this show as it comes out, a few hours later, you'll get to listen to that.
It's still green though. It's not it hasn't gone off road and connected with any. Okay, very good.
Kept it out of the weeds so far. No promises. It's only Tuesday that we're recording this though. So.
Well, Seth, Clint, thank you both very much for taking the time. I know you both are very busy. Our listeners always love it when you show up. Email us, podcast@motor1.com. Tell us what you thought about this episode, what you think about Hyundai's concept cars, Toyota, the Civic Type R, all of the stuff that we talked about. Am I forgetting anything, Bruce?
No, I think you hit everything. You gave us our email address, all of our places you can find us. We've hyped everybody. I think that's it. So as always, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. It's been a great show. It's always great talking to you all. I appreciate everyone who listens, everyone who comments. I'm generally the one that reacts to the comments online, and I know I am up to date as of a few hours ago. So if you haven't heard back from me, I don't know why, I guess. But yeah, it's been great. Thank you, everyone. And we will talk to you next week. So bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.